PTSD. That's a fancy word I just didn't want to hear. You guys, my name is Captain James Vinton. I'm a licensed Coast Guard captain. But back in 1996, I enlisted in the United States Navy. I wanted to be an officer. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but I couldn't. And my story starts like this, guys. When I was young, I have an identical twin brother. We look exactly the same, and I have a young brother, and we became homeless at the age of 6. Um, by age 7, we were learning how to survive. I remember we're from Bishop, California, and I remember we used to jump in every trash can in town. We start at the beginning, go all the way to the end. We would jump in every trash can looking for cans, and we would fill those cans with rocks and stuff. By the end of the town, we can make $100 in cans, and we turn the cans in, right? And we would learn that was how we ate. How we ate McDonald's or ate food or bought a toy. Because when you're young, you don't know why you're homeless. You don't know why you're dirty. We used to wear the same clothes all week long. They were so gross. You go in the morning time to put your socks on, and the socks would be stiff. They'd be like, you go put them on, and then you're freezing in the morning time because maybe you built a fort to sleep in, or maybe you all slept in the truck, crammed in, you know. And really, life as a young person just taught me how to survive. And one day in school, because we did go to school, but we didn't go to school a lot, right? Because when you're out living in sticks, you don't always make it to school. And then at some point, we would walk. We would be dropped off and have to walk through fields to get to school. I remember stopping and drinking in the creeks, drinking water. I remember you see sometimes it depending on the year, you see a bush that had berries on it. You eat the berries. Even asparagus grew in the mountains, and you pick that, eat that. You know, life wasn't easy for us. We didn't. I never understood how people had houses and families, and I would see it, and I didn't understand why I didn't have it. And I never really knew. And life was hard. And at 11 years old, our grandparents, our dad picked us up one day. He hadn't seen us in 4 years, and it wasn't his fault. And my dad just dropped us off with our grandparents because he just worked. My dad served honorably during Vietnam, and I didn't know at the time, was dealing with his demons from his depression and anxiety and everything he got from the military. It totally changed my dad, and back then there was no help. My dad, we're Mexican American. Our father's Mexican, and our mom's American. We're half and half. We're kind of first generation Mexican American. So you guys, we got dropped off with our grandparents. Our grandparents were Hispanic, Mexican American, born in Texas, Mexican through and through, Mexican Indian, and they were good people, but they were hardworking people, and they're old school. So we grew up. Once we got to them, we'd have to work. So by by 11 years, by 7 years old, we were working by jumping in, going through town and jumping in every trash can. We learned how to work with cans and make money. And by 11 years old, we were working. We got jobs. Remember, we got a job at a racetrack, or we worked in the fields picking tomatoes or whatever. Our grandparents were hardworking people, but they raised us old school. I remember my grandpa would drop us off. We would walk from one spot all the way he would drive along the road. We would walk 10 miles and pick up every can alongside the road and turn that in. And then he'd bring us to the mountains the next day to chop wood. And we'd have to do that. We've been working since we're 7 years old. And at some point, we had a full-time job, and we worked before school and after school. I worked in the legal age of 16, but I was already working way before then. By 16 years old, at the day I turned 16, I got a legal job, and I still worked. That was at a 76 gas station. And then I got a job at a store, which I would work before and after school. I would go stock. And then I wanted to play sports. I had all this energy, and I was good at basketball. So, so I played basketball and I played football. I would have to work before school and after practice. So I never really got an education. Between that time, I learned how to survive. I learned, and being Mexican American, my brother and I we're we were attacked for being, sadly to say, but we would be attacked for being white, for being half white, because we grew up in a very Hispanic community, and we would get in fights all the time. We get spit on. I can remember all I did was try. All I did was, as a kid, as a young boy, all I did was survive. That's all I did. I had to survive the whole entire time. And then my grandparents get us, and they're such good people. I love my grandma and grandpa. It's not their fault, but we got. Then they put a situation. Then we're getting attacked for being half white, and this whole racism thing we see in this world. My brother and I lived it. Like, we never got to breathe. I remember just every day at school, somebody wanted to fight us. It's incredible, man. It was so dumb, and we're like the nicest people, and it's always survival. And we always had to work, and we never got a childhood. I never understood that. And you just have to survive, right? And so I wanted to be a fighter pilot. One day, when I was young, I opened up a book at the library, and I saw these fighter jets, and I had this desire to serve my country in my body. And I guess you're just born with it, right? I don't know. You're just born with it. I want to be a fighter pilot, and that didn't happen because I just never got an education. I mean, I was going to go to college. I got accepted to a college in Colorado. I don't know how I did really, but I did, and I didn't go because I was like, I want to go in the military. I need to go to the military now. I just don't think I'm going to make it through school because I didn't learn all the fundamentals through school. In fact, I talk really fast, and I talked super fast when I was younger, and I, I never got education to learn how to talk correctly, to pronounce anything. I've been made fun of my whole life for spelling things wrong and pronouncing things wrong. I got made fun of for years for talking fast, you know, and I guess I just took all of that, and there's no one's going to help me. I didn't have a support system. My grandparents are in heaven. I never had nobody to help me. People help you through life. No one's ever helped me. So I joined the military, and that's where I became JV. That's where people started calling me JV. Why do they call me JV? Well, I'm identical twin. And my brother's name is John, and I'm James. And we look exactly the same. And when I introduced him over to all my friends in the military, they're like, dude, we can't tell apart. And then all my friends would see that, and we would do things together. And so then JV was born. And I became JV. Who's JV? JV's the guy that I wanted to be the best in the military. I wanted to do everything. Any type of thing I could do, I wanted to do it. I wanted to be the best at it, good at it. I kept my mouth shut. I was quiet, and I wanted to work hard. And working hard was from my grandpa and grandma, and I worked since I was 7 years old. I know how to work. I know discipline. I thrived in the military in that aspect. I was the most squared away person on the ship. There's no one more squared away than me. That's just how it was. I had that winner mentality, but I didn't know that, and I had nobody to tell me, "Hey, James, you're doing great." So I served honorably in the military. We went overseas on deployment, and we were there for the start of the war on terrorism. That's when the bad things started happening. And then my time in the military, I wish I would have stayed longer, but I didn't have a support system, and I did so well. I thought, well, my time is up. I might as well just get out now. I was very confused. I just didn't have anybody to say, "Hey, JV, no, stay in or what you need to do." And I didn't know about the SEAL program and things that of the nature I should have tried out, and just I didn't know. And I had some officers saying, "Dude, you're squared away. You should do spec warfare, to do all these things." And I just didn't have a. I wish I would have had somebody say from the family say, "Damn, James, you're doing good. Stay here. Stay here." But I got out and I was lost. And then the nightmare started, and popping the prescription pill started. The self destruction started, and I always after the military, I always wanted to win, and I would accomplish things. But the self destruction started, and the word PTSD, I didn't know it. I never even heard of the word PTSD. So I went through my life self-destruction, but then winning. I became a captain. That was very challenging. Um, Overcoming PTSD, trying to overcome PTSD, and then become a captain. But the reason why I went to boats is because my mind is militarized. Like I am a sailor through and through, and I wasn't doing well on civilian land. So I'm back to what I know, the military, and that's what tugboating is. It's you are licensed through the government. I'm a licensed officer now. If I'd be in the military, I'd be an officer in the military, and but I was a deckhand at first, and it brought me back to the water. It brought me away from people because I had depression, anxiety, and I want to be around people. And it kept me on a boat away from self destruction while I'm on a boat. But then when I go home, I self destruct. And I just didn't know it, guys. I mean, and then one day I had my best friend say, "You got PTSD, dude. And if you don't get help, I'm not going to be a friend no more." And that's when I got help, guys. But I had heard it a million times over. Dude, there's something wrong with you, dude. PTSD, and that's when I got help, guys. Yeah, and that's been the journey since that point. There's so many. I wish I wish I knew what I know now back then, but I didn't know. A lot of self destruction, and then one day I was at a point where I was going to take my life. I was because something bad happened to me. Somebody did something really bad to me, and if you have PTSD and you get something happens to you, it's even worse, right? And if you go through when I went through all these different programs, you learn that there's triggers for PTSD. You know, violence and people doing things to you and bad things happening will just be intensified. A person who has PTSD and then from the military is 20% worse than someone who has PTSD as a civilian, at least 20% worse. And that's how much worse it is. And it's already bad enough if a civilian has PTSD. Imagine if you're in the military, and that's just how it is. And I learned these things going to programs. I was gonna take my life one day because something really bad happened to me. This person, God bless them, did something really bad to me, and I was at the bottom. Like, that's it. But something said, call this number because I had been handed a sheet with numbers for help. I called the number, led to another number, a number, and then I went into programs, and those programs were the start of saving my life. Those programs, I learned a lot about me and PTSD, and at that point is where I learned that I am supposed to help veterans. That was my calling. I've helped people through my life. I've always tried to help people, but it's like kind of like a platform you need. And the platform was my life, PTSD, the struggle since from a kid. I've gone through A to Z. Okay, nothing's been ever given to me, and that's okay. That was what God gave. That's the life that God gave me. I can't take it back. That's what it is. I don't know what a normal life is. And right now, I'm at the point where I'm going to try to live that normal life, right? Because I got help. And through that help, I was put on medications, 7 medications. And I took testosterone because I freaking had so many injuries from overseas. Those, I would just, everything A to Z. My elbows are broken, my feet, my back on both sides. Like, I'm just destroyed. And the nightmares and the depression, anxiety, just I was heavily medicated to get through my day. And then, you guys, one day I talked to the 2 veterans. One served during Korea and one served during Vietnam, and they looked healthy for being that old. This is about 2 years ago, and they looked at me and said, "Yeah, this technology works." I was being introduced to a technology by a doctor, and these gentlemen were there. This doctor, her name is Dr. Debbie. She's a great soul, beautiful soul, but these 2 gentlemen were there, and they told me, "Yeah, I'm off my medications and it works." And veterans never lie to veterans, and so I said, "You know what? I'm gonna give it a try." And that's this technology I'm wearing on my neck. I don't have to wear it on your neck. I just wear it there because of what it's done for me. Okay, I went from being heavily medicated to self destruction. Every day was a day where I couldn't get out of bed. I did so much. I sweat in my sleep, and I was very combative. I was full on fighting in my sleep. And today, on this day right now, here in July, I can tell you right now, I am medication free. No medications. And that is to me incredible. How am I not on medications anymore? Like, I've been medications forever, over 20 years. and I'm medication free. You guys, I sleep like a champ now. I mean, I if I have a nightmare, it's every once in a while, and I can gather myself. And before I wasn't able to gather myself. And here's how I know that technology has worked for me. When something happens, my body would just gravitate towards that. It's like my body left who I am and went to that situation and reacted to it, right? And I couldn't control it. And then I was self-destruct. And now when something happens, I can grab myself and pull myself back to earth, and I can just relax and I can deal with it. How's that possible? Now I can sleep without medications, and I was on 3 medications to sleep. And now I can pull myself back to earth and I can be normal. How is that? Because all I've done was wear this technology and follow the instructions. Now, did that happen overnight? No, it did not. I had to keep wearing it. And I'm not going to lie, no one told me this is going to happen. Like I said, I had 2 veterans tell me they're off their medications. Okay. I didn't ask them what they had, why they're on medications. There's no point in doing that. You don't ever ask veterans, hey, while you were on medications, what did you do? How many people did you kill? You never ask veterans that stupid stuff, right? That's the dumbest stuff. I just said, man, okay, guys, and their faces looked so healthy for being that old. And I listened to them, and I just put the patches on, and I just wore them. I wore 2 in the morning a day and 2 at nighttime, and then I eventually added more patches. And you guys, I'm medication free. I sleep so good. I wake up ready to go. I feel like myself 20 years ago. Like, that's how I feel now. It's just amazing. What is the technology and all those things? I'll explain. I'll make another video. I just wanted to be real with you guys. I've never been real before. I have these 2 young men who are leading me, and they're like, dude, you need to be real about who you are. And these are good dudes, man, really good dudes. Shout out to TJ and Garrett. There's a good men. One of them, his father served honorably in the military, and he said, JV, you got to be real with people, man. You just got to be real about this, because they were the technology. They're younger, and they're on the U.S. Olympian team, and they know the power of it. But how do you really explain how, man, it's just so hard to explain that technology that changed my life. But wow, guys, I'm a new person, and this is about the raw reels I've ever gotten. And see how I can talk now, you guys. When I 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I couldn't talk, man. I talk fast as is, man. I just so much anxiety and depression, guys. Man, I'm such a new person, and I'm not gonna stop wearing the technology because I keep getting better. I'm not getting worse. I'm getting better. I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna finish off with this, guys. This is a long rant. While with the technology, and I was going through a lot at the time, and when it hit me, I noticed all the changes. I just noticed, like, whoa. My first words were this: second chance at life. So, guys, that's what I want for everybody, for every veteran out there, and you deserve it. A second chance at life. No matter what you did in the military, you signed up to serve our country, just like I did. And whether you served overseas like myself or whatever you did, and all the training you went through, you served a country, you came back with disabilities, PTSD, injuries, whatever it is, and you deserve another chance at life because you gave yourself up for our country, and everybody's living this beautiful, free life because of you. And that's what I want for people, guys, is a second chance at life. My name is Captain James Vinton, and thank you guys for listening to my rant.